welcome to another special episode of Two Mr. P's in a Podcast with me, Mr. P.
And the other Mr. P.
And we are very, very excited to be welcoming another cracking author and illustrator, Mr. Jamie Littler. How are we, Jamie?
Hello, I'm very well, thank you. Thanks very much for having me on.
No worries. Thank you very, very much for giving up your time. We are very, very excited to have you. Pleased to have you on the #1 UK educational comedy podcast.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
There's so many
Feel a bit
things
intimidated.
The #1 educational comedy hosted by two brothers.
Yeah. Just as many sort of niche markets to be the #1.
Yeah. #1, yes.
Yeah, but we do say it's a podcast. You know, we talk about education a lot, but it's not one that we really learn.
No, I mean, we often say, don't we? Like, I do learn quite a lot. I usually learn a new word, and I'm sure speaking to yourself, a talented author, you know, I've got my notepad here. I'm ready to learn.
Be prepared to be disappointed, I think.
So, I mean, first question we've got to ask is how's lockdown been treating you? How has this unprecedented time been for you?
Yeah, it's been weird. I think a lot of people are struggling at the moment, and I think I've gotten away quite lightly because I work quite insular anyway, so my day-to-day life generally hasn't been that affected. But I think I've spoken to a lot of other authors and creators, and to be honest, anyone, that there's something about this that kind of really affects your workflow and your kind of inspiration and stuff. I didn't realize how much just going out and seeing people and just going about your day-to-day life like really feeds the brain, you know, like, so suddenly I'm just sitting here trying to be creative, and I've never hit so many kind of creative blocks and everything. But
I feel a bit like that because obviously with my part-time work, so I still work part-time in the classroom, and then I do sort of like training for teachers, so I'll travel here, there and everywhere, and obviously that side of things stopped. So, you know, when it was, I'm going to be working from home, you have all these ambitions of being really, really productive, but actually finding the energy and the motivation at the minute, given everything else going on, really, really.
Yeah, it's being stuck in the place of work. You know, I think it really has an effect, because before this, I used to, just for this very reason, used to rent a studio space just so I could get out. You know, that act of like getting up in the morning, going somewhere, doing your work, coming back, having a place to escape to. And losing that is a bit of a blow, I think. But generally it's okay, you know, like kind of surviving.
Yeah, get there.
I tried to do that. I joined a gym for the first time when gyms reopened. I joined a gym. I mean, I know what you're thinking, obviously. Are you sure you don't work out, mate? But
hold your muscles, yeah.
just roll the t-shirt up slightly a bit more.
Yeah. Which way is the sink?
And and then I went for a couple of days, and then I was begging Boris to shut him again.
They're the super spreaders. So we have to start by talking about your brand new book, Frost Heart. So this is the second book in the series.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, so it's going to be a trilogy. So this is the second one. Yeah.
Yeah. So was it always a trilogy from the moment you sort of thought of the concept, or was it something that opened up as you were in the sort of writing process of the first one?
Yeah, I don't know why it ended up being a trilogy. I think it was that I always had an ending in mind, and I think just talking to like the publishers, it just felt like a trilogy just sounds good, you know. You can leave stories open and just go on as long as possible, you know, as long as it needs to go on, but I don't know, for some reason the trilogy just felt like the right amount of time that we needed. Now, of course, I'm writing book 3, and I'm really wishing I had a bit longer, because I'm just trying to cram it all into the third book is a challenge.
You have to just wait a few more years and then do like an Frost Heart 4.0, go a bit of Die Hard, leave it a while and then hit them years later.
It's like when those bands say that they're breaking up, and then they always have their reunion, you know, have the Frost Heart reunion a few years later, you know, like.
So just for anyone who hasn't read the first book, do you just want to sort of set the scene about the world of Frost Heart, where it sort of takes place, the characters and the sort of story of the first part?
Yeah, sure thing. So it's set in this big frozen world called the Snow Sea, And it's think kind of like an ice age, everything's ice cold. But add into that the fact that there's these giant, dangerous monsters that hide underneath the snow and ice and prey upon anyone who kind of is brave or foolish enough to walk upon them. So it's a very dangerous world, and people are forced to live in these kind of stronghold settlements that are like high above the ice, behind big walls. And, it's very insular, very isolated. And the story follows a boy called Ash, who lives in one of these stronghold settlements in the far north. But Ash has a special power, which is he's a song weaver. He can sing to these Leviathan monsters and kind of bond and connect with them, which makes people a bit scared of him, because obviously there's these monsters preying on everyone, and they're like, how come, what are they saying? What are they, what's going on there? So he's a bit of an outcast. And during there's these people called Pathfinders, who are these brave adventurers who travel the world on these massive engine-powered sleighs. So think of like a kind of pirate galleon, but on like sleigh runners and just shooting across the ice, and they can just about outrun the monsters. So these people are like trying to connect these strongholds together, make sure that civilization doesn't just crumble and disappear. And Ash, during a brave rescue attempt, he kind of saves a Pathfinder crew, the crew of the Frostheart, hence the name. And Ash ends up journeying off with them into the world, trying to find out more about what his powers mean, and also where his missing parents have gone. His parents have been missing since he was very young. And it's just a big rip-roaring fantasy adventure, really.
Yeah, it's sort of Where did the sort of inspiration for it come from? Where the concept of the story, was it based on any other book or film? Because it sounds it's sort of like little bits of...
the description has trilogy written all over it.
Right. It feels like you're about to set into like Lord of the Rings or Star Wars or something like that. Which I think would be big influences. I think it was just like it was that thing of for ages and ages I was trying to make a story, and I kept tripping over myself and like never finishing a story, or the stories I did finish were like I wasn't very keen on them, like they will never see the light of day. I've got like about 5 stories that are hidden away. I would sometimes show my agent. I have like an agent who helps me get work and things, and she was like, these stories, they could do with a little bit more work, So, and I realized that one of the major problems, other than that the writing was kind of terrible, was that I was trying to write these like stories that other people were writing, So you go to bookshops and you see what was really popular at the time, which at the time were like kind of like wacky comedies and things, which I really enjoy reading, but I didn't really want to write that, and I was trying to write at something that didn't really mean anything to me, and I think that's just like a recipe for disaster, because you're just going to get bored, your soul's not going to, your heart's not going to be in it. So it was that kind of thing that I thought, what is it I want to write? And it was just a rip-roaring fancy adventure with a crazy ragtag bunch of adventurers, and just loads of different influences from different things I'd read, watched. I'm a big video game player, so like different games I'd played. I think there's quite a lot of kind of like video game elements to the story. It was just kind of smashing it all together, as well as those ideas that I kind of didn't follow through with. Like I grabbed bits from them and just kind of mushed it all together into like a big adventure.
It's so funny when you talked about your agent handing them stories to your agent. We actually did a bit of that on the podcast, didn't we? About when you ask someone a question and they reply with and it's just like do you like my new haircut? And someone goes
yeah,
and you're just like, so no then.
My agent's like kind of I love her, she's amazing, Jodie. She's like, but she's like brutally honest, so there's no like messing around. She'd just be like so I'd be like, what did you think of that story? She was like, it's terrible, We're not going to submit it. Like, I'd have to go and hide in a shed, you know, like, yeah.
I just want to picture you skipping into her office. Here you go. Just like, and then walking out like, hello, darkness, my old friend.
It is literally like that. At least I would get like a coffee out of it or something. You know, the one still behind me.
It's good because I think like when I'm teaching my class about, you know, when we're writing something, I'm always trying to tell them to try and get, you know, to find their own writing voice. It's about getting, you know, taking the best bits from what they're reading, what they're seeing, and all that sort of stuff. So it's nice to hear a similar sort of thing.
And it's also just that, again, like it's learning, like, because I was an illustrator before I was an author, and I was lucky enough to work with a load of authors, so it was able to kind of see how they worked. Like, you know, I got to meet them and kind of see behind the scenes, and that was a massive help as well. So just kind of taking on board what they were telling me. And again, like with my agent, even though she was quite brutal, she had very valid criticisms, you know? So like once you kind of stop crying and screaming into a pillow, you kind of pull yourself together and think, she's got some really valid points here. And same with like, we would submit to publishers who would reject it. I had like a lot of rejections. The publishers were a lot softer and nicer than my agent at rejecting things, but they would still, you know, say like, yeah, we like the idea, but this wasn't working, or yeah, you know, you don't have a distinct enough voice, or this or that, and it was just taking that on board and trying to work with that, really, you know.
Oh, good. So where does this second book then take us? So what's the next part of the adventure?
It kind of follows on straight from the end of book one. And Ash is still looking for his parents. He's following. He's realized that they've left him some hidden clues hidden around the world. Yeah, he's following kind of like a breadcrumb trail, and it's led him and the crew of the Frost Heart to Aurora, which is it's the jewel of the Snow Sea. It's this huge, think kind of Rome of its day. You know, like this massive stronghold, the biggest stronghold in the world, full of different cultures and technologies and nothing like what Ash is used to, like way out in the middle of nowhere. So Ash is like really excited that Stronghold is Aurora is everything he dreamt it would be and more. But also as the world kind of opens up, it also becomes way more dangerous. And he realizes that in Aurora, there's this kind of folk hero, this like legendary Leviathan hunter called Captain Stormbreaker, you know, a very kick butt name kind of thing going on there. And he has certain plans to kind of bring the fight back to the Leviathans, and it involves Songweavers, perhaps not in ways Ash is going to be very happy with, you know. So he realizes people like him are in more danger than he realized. And leave it there, I think, without giving too many spoilers. Yeah.
And did you find like the follow-up book easier to write because you're already one book in, or was it more tricky?
I think
because that's what they always say about the second album, don't they?
Yeah, the difficult second album, right? Yeah. It was a bit of both, I think. It like with book one, I still had a lot to learn. So like when my book was it's accepted by Puffin Books, who published the book. They really they could see the potential, but they were like, we need to do a lot of work here. So together with my editor, who was amazing, like Naomi, we kind of reshaped it, re-put everything in, and that was quite a challenge in itself, just trying to figure out how to make basically the plot make sense. Whereas the second book, because we did so much groundwork there, we kind of hit the ground running with the second book. It was a lot easier to be like, this is what's going on. I can see this now.
You're not having to sort of create the world; it's already established.
Yeah, you know the characters. You know the plot. Like by then, we'd kind of outlined the entire plot, so we knew what had to happen. So that was easier. The thing that was harder, I think, was the continuity. So because my stories very much end with kind of like cliffhanger ending, and then lead straight into the next story, so they really work as a three. It was just making sure that everything was right, you know, like the amount of times I just like stormed ahead, was like, yeah, this is great. It would show like my like copy editors who kind of catch things at the end, and they're like, in the first book you said this and it completely changed in the second book, and like, you know, so I'd have to be like jumping backwards and forwards, and like God knows how people like, you know, like George R. R. Martin, who writes things like Game of Thrones or something, like how he manages to keep that kind of those many threads.
Connections. It
gave me a whole new like load of respect for authors like that.
It must be like, just speaking about the fact that it's just the second book, it must be like nervy though, because I always think about obviously like movie sequels, and because the first book was so, and congratulations by the way on the first book and this, but because the first book was such a rousing success, I like the name, you know, Frostheart, Escape from Aurora, strong.
Yeah.
You know, if you'd gone Frostheart, Frostheartier, it could have been a little bit embarrassing. There could have been a bit of egg on the face.
Yeah.
You like the name, guys? Yeah.
It's funny you should say that, because we went through so many names, like and it was really hard actually, like trying to come up, because sometimes it sounded a bit too B-movie, you know, like Revenge of so and so, or like you know, like
Frostheart 2,
Stormbreaker returns.
Yeah, exactly. You know, that was the kind of things that were thrown around, and it's because it's trying to find that balance of like trying to be inviting to kids who would be like, yeah, that sounds like really fun, and also just not sounding just awful. And Frostheart 2 was thrown around a bit, but I was just like, it just sounds a bit too sequely, you know.
Like you didn't write it, like someone's like the first book and thought, you know what, I'm gonna do it again. I'm gonna write a sequel one.
Yeah, exactly. And as you said, like, well, when I started with Frostheart 1, I was like, if anyone likes this book, I'll be happy. Like, even if 2 people like it or 1 person, like, you know, I've written something I'm proud of. It's gone out there. So like it had some really good reception, which I was really happy about, which did actually make the second book way more terrifying. Especially like just like, because then it was like, oh, people are actually now expecting this to continue being good. I don't know if I can you know, supply, but like, luckily people seem to be reacting to this one even better than the first one. So
did you know that it was going to be a trilogy? I know we asked that at the start, but when you said about Puffin Books, like doing the first one, when they were like, oh my god, we love this, did you kind of go, it's 2 more, you know?
It was. I think when we announced that the book had been, that the deal was made, like we announced that it was a trilogy. And I think I've always been quite open about it, but I swear it's the one question I get asked the most by fans is, how many books will there be? When's the next one coming out and stuff, which is great. You know, I'm so happy that they're excited and want more, but it's like, and now it's just like overwhelming disappointment that there's only 3, which I should take as a real compliment.
Trilogy? I thought I said quadrilogy.
Quadrilogy. You need like an extended universe. That's what you need.
Yeah, that's it. Like, you know.
Who does it? Tom Fletcher does it, doesn't he? With like the Christmasaurus and
he's been really successful.
Sort of set within the same world, aren't they?
Yeah.
No, do you think that's a possibility? Sort of taking a different character on an adventure within that world?
I really like. I do like that idea. Like, I'm kind of torn, because sometimes I think a story has its ending, you know, and I think it's rare for like lightning to strike twice, and you know, like that. Something successful, people really enjoy something, it's probably because of the energy and the soul of that thing at the time. But I think, like you're saying, I think if ever I was to return to that world, I would do it that way, that I wouldn't do it with the characters we know. I would try and do a completely different story in that world, but with completely different characters, with a completely different vibe and atmosphere. I think people can do that really well, and I do like that idea. I think if ever there was a sequel, it would be like that.
Like that. Super. So like with the characters then, so the main character of Ash, who you know has his group of misfits alongside him, I think Adam would fit in well with them, to be fair. Is he based on anyone? Where did the inspiration for his character come from? Is it a collection, you know, bits from different people, or someone someone close to you?
I think that kind of inevitably kind of leaks in, you know, like people I know and myself as well, because obviously I'm writing. So like I think every single character has a bit of my personality in them, which is probably not a great thing to say, because there's like some pretty evil characters in this story. Really, like, but I guess we've all got that side to us, you know, like, so I mean, mostly I do think of like, what does the story need? What's going to be really fun? And like, I try and find a voice for that character. Like, I don't want just everyone to sound the same. Like, and that's something I definitely do is in like later drafts of the story, is I just do like the voices draft, or I just go through the entire book and try and make sure everyone sounds different and has little like you know, tics in the way they speak and little phrases and things like that. So that's all kind of like quite conscious, but there will be some characters that I think, you know, I'll put like some in jokes with like some friends, or like I would never want to base one entirely on a friend or someone I know, because I think they could take that potentially quite badly.
Legal. Get the email off the lawyers.
Like your friend who's got a lazy eye, and this character in your book, why is his eye dodgy?
It was like my friend Bill, and just like have a character called Bill in it, and he's just like, do you really see me like this? You know, is this what I am to you? You know, like, which, I think I could lose some friendships. You know.
But you said before that you actually started as an illustrator, and you've done plenty of work with other authors. Danny Wallace being one, Georgia Pritchett. You've even done illustrations for Enid Blyton, is that right?
Yeah, it is right. Yeah.
How did that one come about?
Yeah, that was that I think of that really fondly, because not only is obviously Enid Blyton like hugely famous and popular, at the time it was still quite early in my career, and I'd done a few jobs and they'd gone well, you know, like it was kind of startup jobs and things like that. But I remember it was actually a bit of a dark patch where a job I'd just been working with a really big publisher, and the book that I got released was like, we were all happy with it, but it didn't do as well as it you know, they wanted it to do. That kind of fell through, and I was meant to do a book following that, and that kind of, you know, they didn't give that job to me because the other book fell through. So I was like, oh, that, you know, like pretty upset, because that was the first time something like that had happened to me. And then I was trying to get another job, was doing loads of samples for that, and that didn't go through. And I remember really panicking, because I just like recently quit my job in BHS to become a full-time illustrator. And my manager, who I won't name, but he wasn't my favorite person in the world, he actually said to me as I left, when this little art thing fails, you can come back and get a job in BHS. And I was just like,
Who's laughing now?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Not even BHS anywhere.
It was me like.
When Frost Art came out, did you go through and go, BHS, big hot stuff?
I would have if BHS was still there. I'm not vengeful at all. I'm not. So I was really scared that I was like, oh my God, I'm actually going to have to walk back through those doors and say my little art thing did fail and I need the job back. But luckily, like the publisher who I had been working with, where the book hadn't done as well, we'd got on really well, luckily, and you know, we'd made a really good professional relationship. And I was doing a lot of comics at the time, and she'd seen some of that stuff. So it was very different to the work I'd done with her, which was all kind of like watercolors and things like that. So I remember it so well, because I was like at the lowest I'd been. And then I got this email just saying, we're thinking of revamping the Famous Five, you know, with kind of more modern illustrations. I love your comic stuff. Will you do some samples for me? And obviously I was trying to play quite hard to get and stuff, but really I was just like, oh my God, you know, like running around my house.
Did you take your BHS badge off?
Get out of here.
Email back, I'll see what I can do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I just put everything I had into it. I sent so many samples, you know, just burning the midnight oil, just trying to get the characters right and stuff. And it was honestly like kind of like a kind of Christmas Carol-esque ending, where it was like it was just like a week before Christmas, and I hadn't heard from her for a while, and again I was getting a bit nervous. I was like finishing up like literally the last of my illustration jobs, and she sent through an email just saying, you got the job. So it was like the best way to finish before Christmas and everything.
What a lesson though. What a lesson for anyone listening. Just keep going.
I mean it was
Because holiday shifts in BHS as well would have been coming up. Madness around Boxing Day. I bet you're thinking triple pay, but
And I've done enough Christmas shifts in BHS to know what that was like.
We used to both work in Next. Before we worked in schools, we both worked at Next.
What were you going to say then? Before we made it.
No, but we were very familiar with that retail life at one time, and the hectic Christmas shifts.
Oh man, I was like the people that worked
replenish. Did you have to do replen?
that was literally what I spent most of my day doing. It was either till work or replen. Like, yeah. And like by some of the points, like I'm sure you guys knew, the shop was just, there was nothing more you could do, you know. So you were just kind of like smoothing out clothing. Stuff, you know, like.
I bet your doodles on the back of receipt paper were so much better than mine.
Oh man, yeah. But so it was like, and that was kind of the springboard for my career as well. So like that famous
five, they are just timeless, aren't they? I mean,
exactly.
I think when I was younger, I was a bit more of a Secret Sevensman, to be honest.
I think I'm the same as you. Yeah, I think I read them both, but Secret Seven, they were a bit more like kind of the mystery.
Yeah, the mystery side of things.
Yeah, that was really cool.
But that's amazing. Just sticking with it, and and I mean, one thing that stands out with the book, I mean, the illustrations are unreal.
Thank you very much.
Really, I mean, you get that sort of feel of the sort of comic element coming through. I mean, you look through the book, and straight away, I'm just like, this could easily be a film.
Oh, yeah.
That's got to be.
I would love it to be. I'd love it to be animated as well, because I, like you said, like comics and animation, like I've always like loved animation so much. Like no matter who's doing it, just like there's just a magic to animation that I think you only get from that. And for a long time I wanted to be an animator, so that's like where I was kind of like pushing all my drawing and everything like that. So I think like the idea of an animated movie would be amazing. But
that's the dream, though, isn't it? We had an author visit our school years ago. Can't remember his name. I think it was Alan Gibbons.
Oh, cool.
And Alan Gibbons, I think it was called. Yeah. And we were just chatting, making small talk, and he said that he nearly had one of his books sort of picked up by Hollywood as a film. And I always remember him saying, he said, that'd have been me set for life. I wouldn't have had to do another day's work. And I just think, and he was going on about Morpurgo, because it was around about the time that War Horse was made by Spielberg. And then he was just like, that would have been me made, but it didn't end up happening. But you
hear so many stories of that, of Hollywood studios almost picking up someone's book and things like. I think it would obviously be really nice. I'm actually really careful to try and not think too much about it, because I think I love books, I really do, and when I'm making this thing, I just try and think, what's the best book I can make? And you hope that maybe, things may follow on from that, but if they don't, I'm happy to have.
I don't think they'd have the same effect if you tried to write it kind of as a film. When you're trying to do it authentically at the start, it's just like, the way you're doing it. This is, I can see it now. I'd like a little voice roll, just throwing it in there.
Get creative, get creative, right?
Does Stormbreaker sound like this?
Do like some like dramatic music, like merge together a big trailer and stuff. I think you're on.
No, it would be great. And so the book's out now. Did you say October 1st was when it came out?
October 1st it came out. Which is really exciting. So
absolutely
hard to believe it's back out in the world.
And so with the first book, you were sort of saying before that when the book was released, there was lots of traveling, there was lots of visits, and that's not happening as much.
And I think that's a real shame, because like writing and illustrating is so solitary. Like you can go a bit mad, because you're kind of in your brain all the time. Like you're just always thinking on your own, you're drawing on your own. So like there's something you can kind of, and even when I finish artwork or writing, you send it via email to your publishers, and so you can sometimes feel like I'm really the only one seeing this. You don't really see anyone else's reaction to it. So there's something so amazing about actually being able to see people react to it, and people who can tell you that they enjoy it or don't enjoy it, as the case may be. Because as you guys probably know, kids can be pretty harsh critics. I think they'll just tell you what they think.
We were laughing the other day because we found like in one of the reading corners in the classroom, a child had just left a little bit of a present. Basically used the reading corner for the toilet, and there's just a nice little log there. And I just thought it was the nicest review, because it was like literally next to a book. I think it was a David Walliams book, actually. And it just felt like the first book review ever.
take a picture and put it on Amazon or something, you know.
What a choice of, you always like something to read when you're on the toilet. I bet he was just like, couldn't choose, then just thought, you know what, I'll just go here.
Yeah, that's I don't know if I would have recovered from that review.
Just got yourself lucky you've not had one of those reviews. So I mean, the book, the pictures are amazing. How important to you are those illustrations to your sort of story?
Yeah, I think for me, I do think it depends on what story you're telling, but I think like a lot of things, it can add so much. It can make something richer. So like storytelling, I love storytelling no matter how it comes. But like for instance, like movies and stuff can use time and sound to like music and things to its advantage, and like comics are really good at telling action, because unlike in a book where you'll be like, he punched him in the gut, he gave him an uppercut, he flicked him, it can read a bit like a horrible list and stuff, but a comic just shows that without any of those kind of descriptives. And I think it's the same with a book. Like I think books without pictures are like really great, and like you can lose yourself in them. But I think if you're trying to tell the story I am, which is like right from the beginning, we knew it was going to be really heavily illustrated, and we really wanted it to feel almost like you picked something up from another world, so like the Snowsea, the world the book's set in, we wanted this to feel like it was like an artifact from that place, so, and I think illustration just like it makes that so much richer, like, so you can have all these symbols and icons and hopefully like really trigger the reader's imagination, really kind of.
I feel you get this sort of immersive, you're immersed into that world.
Yeah, exactly. Like I think it can I think it can definitely help immerse, like for instance, reluctant readers, but I think it goes beyond that. Like even like I read all the time, but I love like when you get this like really heavily illustrated book and you see just like so much imagination and world building, which is one of the things I love the most, like these people, like how they dress and what they use and how their architecture looks, and how like, as you said, immersion, it's just so immersive because you feel like you're almost stepping into that world, and I think that's something illustration's really good at doing, is just it can add something that perhaps doesn't necessarily come through in the text, like sometimes you'll read a book and you'll absolutely love it and you have a picture of it in your head, and I think that's amazing as well, but then you like watch, for instance, like a movie remake and it looks nothing like what you pictured, and I think that can be really fun and exciting and cool, but I think if you really want them to have this is what the world is and stuff, like I think illustration really.
I need illustrations. I'm not gonna lie to you there. A book full of words is not the book for me.
Well, it's like people like you that give me a job, so I'm really happy that,
I know your book's aimed at children, but hello.
No, I'm more than happy to hear that kind of thing. So, I mean, I still love reading illustrated books. So I think there is like a magic there that it's hard to explain. But
I agree.
We do like in our school, we do at least a unit of work each year. With each year, every class will do a unit of work in English based around a wordless picture book. And honestly, the stuff you can get out of it is just unbelievable. Some of the Anthony Brown stuff, Sean Tan books we use.
Sean Tan, I'm a massive fan of. He's incredible. Yeah. He did that entire graphic novel. I think it's The Arrival, where it's just there's not one word in it, but you can tell what's going on, the atmosphere. So good. Yeah, he's a master, that guy. Like,
So how do you find sort of moving from being an illustrator to then becoming an author? Was it fairly straightforward because you'd been able to work with so many authors before, or was it quite?
I mean, again, it's kind of a mixture of the two. Like, I think, like even from a kid, I knew I loved storytelling. So, like, even when I was doing pictures, I was thinking of the story behind it. So I would rarely like just draw something because it was a pretty picture. I would think who these characters are. There'd be a story behind it. This thing's coming in because of this, and like. And I used to draw loads and loads of comics, or like pretend I was making my own movies. Like I remember I watched Jurassic Park and I was just obsessed with Jurassic Park. So I basically retold my own Jurassic Park just through pictures and words and things like that. So it was always like when I graduated from uni, it was always something I wanted to do was write the story and draw the illustrations. and it just so happened that I got into illustration easier, as we were saying earlier, that like my writing did need a bit more work and a bit more like progression and stuff. Like yeah, exactly. But so yeah, like I think it came naturally in that I was always doing it behind the scenes. Like I was always writing and I was always drawing. So when I got to do both, like when I actually got taken by the publisher, it sounds so cheesy, but it was a dream come true, you know, and it was like more exciting than anything. But as you said, like having spoken to so many authors, having like gone to see so many publishers and seen how like, because I would often get texts given to me to illustrate before any edits had happened or anything. So I would see how the book changed as well. You know, you realize that even these incredible authors were still like quite heavily edited and things. You know, you would kind of get this window into that world. And yeah, so it felt kind of natural to me, but obviously there were still loads of things I needed to learn. But I think that's with anything, you know, and I don't think you ever stop learning as well. Like there's always stuff you can improve on.
I can vouch for that wholeheartedly. I've learned so much. It must be a hell of a feeling though, because have you ever had anyone say to you, well, you've said to someone like, oh, I've written a book and it's been published, and they go, no way, who does the illustrations? Like this guy again.
Absolutely, yeah, seriously. Like and some people I mean, to me, obviously, because it's the world I'm in and it's what I know. And like, I've got so many friends who are illustrators, and a lot of those illustrators write as well. So it's the world I'm in. But like some people, which I find really lovely, like they kind of, they can't comprehend it. It's like, what, you drew those pictures and you wrote that? And it's like, yeah, you know, like, yeah, it's amazing. It's great, you know, which is it's really lovely. It's really heartwarming. Like,
and the ultimate question, what comes first, the pictures or the story?
At the beginning, and this is a bit of a cheat question, they kind of both come at the same time, because I tend to write loads of notes. So I'll write this like how I see the story going, the characters, and I'll often draw next to them. So like my notebooks are just full of like the doodles are like quite rough. Like I don't think many people would really understand what I'd drawn except for me. Even sometimes I'm like, what the hell is that? You know, like but so it kind of starts at the same time, but then it's definitely kind of like the words. I think especially a story that big, it's like I kind of need to know what's going on before I start drawing it. But as I'm writing it, I am like you could pause the writing at any moment and I would be like, yeah, I know what I would draw here, you know, because I think my brain kind of sees it as a movie, you know, so it's all moving pictures and dialogue and stuff at the same time. So it's like, I think the illustration side comes quite naturally. So I'm kind of like trying to focus on the newer thing to me, which is writing, you know, try and tell the best story you possibly can and then draw the pictures at the end, you know.
Absolutely. So how much, so we're going to take it back, because obviously our podcast, we talk a lot about school. What were you like when you were at school? Were you did you enjoy it? Were you a bit of someone who made wrong choices?
I think, unfortunately, I was kind of boring at school. I think I was quite, especially at primary school, I was quite quiet. Like I would kind of be the kid who was at the back, kind of just doing what I was told, like doing what I needed to do. I always wanted to do well, so I would try my hardest to like listen and stuff. But I was also quiet enough that if I was struggling, I wouldn't put my hand up and ask. You know, like I would just suffer in silence in the background. Like, I got a bit more like loud and stuff in secondary school. But definitely, I guess, just kind of boring. Just kind of just the quiet kids, you know, in the corner, really.
Did you always want to be, I mean, when you were younger, if you were asked when you were like 8, 9 years old what you wanted to be when you were older, was it always what you do now, or did you have a different?
Yeah, no, I think it was always like, I think in my head, I saw myself going into movies, because I don't think you necessarily understand like all the different jobs you can get in a creative thing when you're that old. So like, I was just like, I want to, like, again, I was obsessed with Jurassic Park. So I think I was just like, I want to make Jurassic Park, you know, that's the job I want. But it was definitely that thing, you know, when you're that age and there's always the best person at something in the class. And I always remember it was like the best drawer would be like me or this guy called Ben Bradbury. And like, you know, it was that thing, like if anything ever needed drawing or whatever, the whole class would kind of turn around and look at us, you know. So it's this kind of like rivalry between me and
like
Ben.
a stare off, like
yeah, it's like spinning pencils. Like,
This class ain't big enough for the both of
Has
us.
Ben made it?
Yeah,
Has Ben got his own trilogy on the way? Or
no, I don't know what happened to Ben in the end. Actually, like
looks like he wasn't as good as you.
Yeah. It's like, well.
During VHS, wasn't he?
Yeah. This is making me sound so vindictive and like you know, like good.
That evil person in the book, Ben.
Yeah. No, Ben was lovely. I kind of lost contact with him recently, but like but he it was always kind of between us. So that was that kind of competitive streak. Like
so in your art lessons, were you the one, you know, the teacher would always hold up what a good one looks like? Was it always
and it was like that, and it was but again, because I was quite quiet, I used to hate that, you know, like because everyone would look my way and I'd just be like, because I was always the type that would draw and not show anyone as well. It took years before my parents even realized how much I was drawing, because I would just draw and then like hide it away, you know, like I've always been.
They were relieved.
Yeah. It's like, what is he doing? Like, he's just so quiet.
He's just in his room for hours on it.
Yeah.
And then you come out with your arm shaking.
Yeah. There's many worse things that could lead to, I think. Like, so like, but I definitely enjoyed primary school. Like, I had a really. It was like I had a really close class. Like, we were all like really nice. There was no real like bullies or anything. It was just like secondary school was a bit of a different thing. You know, I think everyone at secondary school is like it's difficult, isn't it? Like, I mean, again, I had like amazing friends at secondary school, but I went to a boys' school as well, which is always like, you know, it was just this constant rush to be like, who's the hardest, and like you know, and I was kind of lucky because
I think in primary school it's basically all boys are bothered about primary school, who's the fastest.
Exactly, right? Like, it's just like who can kick the ball the hardest, or you know, like,
and then secondary school it's like, who's the hardest.
Exactly.
So
I was quite lucky because I was about this height when I joined secondary school, and I'm just under 6 foot. So at the time I was a giant, so I was kind of left alone. But then everyone kind of outgrew me as school went on. I was like,
Was it a rugby school you went to?
It was very much a rugby school. Yeah, I did. I used to play for the team up until it was about year. Yeah, exactly. And suddenly I was like mulched into the mud, like No, what it actually was, in all seriousness, is that practice happened on Sunday mornings, and we're talking like 9 o'clock Sunday morning. And I just hated that so much, like, because I was such a weekend kid. I loved my weekends, and I was just like, I don't want to do it anymore. Like, so I just quit. Like,
no, because we went to an all boys rugby school sort of thing, and I always remember in my year particularly, it was 2 lads who just seemed to sort of hit puberty from year 7. And for the first few years, they just used to dominate rugby. Like every rugby game, the tactic, the teacher just be like, pass it to Williamson.
Give it to them,
every time. But then eventually...
Oh, we definitely had them. Yeah, because I've always been about this skinny, like a noodle. But we had people who were like probably over 6 foot in my school who were like, you know, like a tank, you know, like they would just charge you. But I also remember we had this kid who was like, he was from New Zealand, and obviously coming from a big rugby heritage, he and his family were just so keen that he played rugby and got into the rugby team. But unfortunately, he was just terrible. Like, and I remember feeling so sorry for him, like, because he would give it his all. You know, you could tell he had the passion. But
did he do a hacker before, and everyone was like, he's so good. And he's just like,
the thing, you would throw the ball to him, and he would almost do like a cartoon run, you know, where he would like charge up on the spot before he even ran anywhere and stuff. Like, and he was. I genuinely felt sad for him, even at school, when it was your duty to kind of make fun of people. I think everyone didn't, because they were like, they just felt too sorry for him. You know?
So would you say that art was always your favourite subject at school?
it's hard because like I would think it's going to sound weird, but I'd say no, because I think like I found and it's not because of the teachers. I actually liked my art teachers, but I found art really uninspiring at school.
Yeah.
I think what it was because, like, especially as a kid, you just want to draw what you want to draw. And I think that like reading as well, like you should encourage kids just to read for fun. Like, and same with drawing. I think art's not only drawing, obviously art's like so many things.
Yeah.
And that was the thing. I found they would often like get you to look at the masters, which is important, but I think perhaps later on. So they'll be like, this is Van Gogh or this is Picasso, copy them, like, so you, or like,
it's terrible. Like,
exactly.
Really terrible, aren't they?
Yeah. And you've got no desire to do that. You've not really necessarily been explained what the artists were actually trying to do or achieve. And like, and also like when you're like an 8-year-old kid or something, you want to draw like monsters and dinosaurs and superheroes and stuff. You don't necessarily want to draw an apple still life or something, So I think like I didn't mind art. Like I did enjoy the art lessons, but also it was kind of like the DOS lesson as well. Like in all through my school years, like the kids just went mental in the art lessons. So like,
it was definitely the DOS lesson.
Yeah, exactly. Like. Yeah, so most of the lesson was just like, even if I wanted to, nothing was getting done, So like, so my art was all done at home, really. It was kind of self.
Did you have one of those massive sort of like what they called
display
people who did art?
Oh yeah, like the big like red folders that had like
the black
A1 paper.
A1 paper. That you
could man, I've got so many of those folders. My parents have just moved house, and every time I speak to them on the phone or see them, they're like, we need you to go through those folders, because like there's literally like a room just filled with them.
I want sharpened a pencil to the end in art. That was the best. I started with a pencil, and then by the time the bell went, I was like, it's just nothing anymore. It's art.
Do you know what though? That's art. You can pass that.
Seriously. Put that into the summer exhibition or something, and you might win a few thousand.
There's nothing. I love that. I love that piece.
Yeah.
What is it? It used to be a pencil, but I sharpened it all.
A metaphor for our lives, like the fragility in our mortality.
My art teacher, because I didn't have the same. You had Roderick, didn't you? Which we've talked about on the podcast. We had loads of different art teachers. It seemed to be one of those subjects where you'd have one teacher for one term, another. And I always remember we had this Scouse woman who was just obsessed with shading. Why is it not shade? And you just have to draw like pictures of random things, like a Coke bottle, and then she just inspects shading.
Yeah, we had a very similar. I don't even know what her accent was. Sometimes she was Irish. She would get a bit of Jamaican in there. She would like. We to this day don't know where she was from. She was a nice lady, but she was very much that. It was like I think we even drew a crushed Coke can, and I think that's kind of a classic, and she was obsessed with ellipses, and she'd be like ellipses, like she'd say it, and so we were like, oh, and to this day I draw ellipses, and I think of her, and I think I remember like during parents' evening being told, my parents were told, Jamie needs to work on his ellipses. And it's like, what is your fascination with ellipses? It's so weird. Like, but I still think of her to this day for that reason,
Was there any subjects at school that you absolutely despised, that were just like your worst and you used to dread?
Yeah, definitely maths. I think I to this day I can't do maths. I still count on my fingers, and like but it was one of those things that in the lesson I kind of understood what was being told to me. As soon as I left the lesson, I didn't have a clue, and I think that was the reason that I hated it, was that everyone else just seemed to get it, and I was just like, I don't know why I'm not getting this, but I said, like, I was never one to kind of reach out to the teacher and say, help me. So I would just like, I've just always been bad at maths. Never. It like literally some of it just looks like hieroglyphics to me. And
definitely one of the worst things as a kid, though. Like when you sat in a lesson and you can just tell that people are like, when you say, okay, start, and then you see people going through a test, and then you're just sat there on question one, just like trying to have a look at, see if you can glance at an answer here or there. But then when someone goes, easy this, and you're just like, oh my God, getting out of here.
Yeah, and seriously, it happened to me so much, and I do remember it was in year 9 actually where I had like my biggest like drop from from I can't think of the word. You know, it was such a bad time. Was because again, like all my maths teachers were actually quite good as well, except for my year 9 teacher, where again, like I think the set I was in, it became like a DOS lesson. So and it wasn't until we had the test that year that I realized how little I'd learned, because like nothing in the test made sense to me at all. And like, oh man, that was such a terrible test. You know, when people talk about exams, I just think of that exam, you know, where you think, I'll go on to the next one. And the questions are just getting harder and harder and harder. And you're just like, I'm not going to answer one question in this test. Like, yeah, it was so bad.
Were there any other sort of subjects that you enjoyed? Because I thought with like maths, was it everything about maths, or was because like obviously when it came to things like graph and sort of shape, as an artist, would you not have
yeah. If I could draw a picture, I was happy, you know. Like, yeah.
Apples that were 5 had some great shading.
When it was like, show you're working, I would just draw myself, like writing the exam, you know, like
the question.
like a thought bubble coming out my head. Like again, like there was some maths that I did actually quite enjoy, I suppose. Like I think it was that like, I guess thinking about it, it was just that act of like feeling like I didn't understand it, just feeling so out of my depth. I remember even in GCSE, because I really tried for my GCSEs, and I remember revising my butt off for every exam, and I remember just going through my maths books, just being like, I'm just gonna see how this goes in the exam. Luckily I knew what was coming, and I worked so hard on the coursework that I think I walked into the exam with a D. So, or like, you know, like I needed to get like only a certain amount of marks before I would have had a D.
Name on the paper.
Exactly. So I was like, I'm just gonna have to see how this goes. I actually ended up getting a C, which was I was just so proud of myself. You know?
You didn't doodle over the barcodes, because that's an absolute no.
Do you actually get marked down for that? Because I was genuinely quite scared. Like, when it was like, leave this space blank, I was like, oh my God.
Hating it like this.
Yeah, it's like, come on, Jamie, you're better than this.
So overall, would you say school was like a positive experience for you? You enjoyed it? What sort of influence would you say it's had on where you are today?
I do think so. I think there were, like, especially secondary school, there were things I really didn't like. I didn't enjoy going to school and stuff per se. But then I said, like, I think I had like an amazing friends there who I still am friends with to this day. And I actually do think about certain lessons which I really enjoyed. I did actually go to a really good school, and like I had some amazing teachers who were like again, like my English teacher, for instance, was amazing. He was like really funny. He was that kind of teacher that you wouldn't mess with him, you know, but he had respect of the class, but he could also have a laugh with you guys and stuff, you know. So like he was really cool. And I think especially like creative writing, funnily enough, I used to love doing that stuff with him. And like I did actually really enjoy, I think school as well, like they really like hammered into us like the importance of like working hard, trying to do well, basically. And I think that did rub off. I think it's hard for school not to rub off on you, isn't it? Because you spend like your formative years there, kind of thing. And it's like I think like most kids, I didn't like going to school, but looking back on it, I kind of look back on it fondly. And when me and my mates meet up, we're always like laughing about school and like, you know, funny lessons. And I think it was a good experience, to be honest. And any
funny stories, any stories that like is the one story you always still laugh about now?
There's one in particular. Because I was thinking about this question, and there's a lot that I'm like, there's so many stories I could tell, a lot of them involving a bit like you were telling me, the kid who left the review in the library. There's a few stories that involve that kind of thing. But I think the one that me and my friend, a story I speak about. I'm trying to think which one to tell here. Sorry, I'm like trying to think which one will be funnier. Maybe my acting career in school is a good one because I really loved drama. I really loved like acting, and I said like I kind of wanted to be in movies and stuff. So I was like, this is what I'm going to put all my effort into. You know, like it's going to be wicked. And I was just constantly given terrible roles. So like I remember in the first one. I can't even remember what we were doing. The first play, I was put on like triangle, like, you know, like not even a good instrument, you know, just some, just like there occasionally dinging. That's when
my thing. You're struggling in it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jamie. Cheers, mate.
Yeah. And then it went on to the next one, which we did. We like, you know, sometimes you have like assemblies and stuff, but then we did like a big like school production where every year was involved, and we like went all out. Like it was going to be like a ticketed thing. The parents would come in the evening. We did all the sets, the costumes, and we were doing Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat. And in that, I was cast as a sheaf of corn. And at this point, I like, because, you know, usually then you're like, depending on what year, like the higher years used to get given like the better roles and stuff. And I was kind of in the middle years at this time, maybe like year 4, I think. But my brother was 2 years younger than me. So he was 2 years below. He was given the role of a sheep. And I was like, at least he's a sentient being, you know, like I'm literally an inanimate object, you know, like I'm not even growing anymore. I think I was like cut from the thing and collected, you know, so like I was just there as a sheaf of corn, you know, like whilst Joseph's singing about his dreams and stuff. And in the next play, you know, this is getting to like year 5. I think I was upgraded in the music department, which was always kind of the rubbish department to be in anyway, to tambourine, which was at least kind of like at least some. But then I remember in year 6, I was so happy because we did this play. It's such a weird play. I feel like it's partly a fever dream, but like it was called Big City Dreams, and it's kind of like a mixture of Oliver Twist meets Back to the Future. It's like these kids get sent back to Victorian London, and I got the role of the big, fat, jolly policeman, which was actually a really good role. Like he actually did loads. He was involved in the story. I had my own song. So I practiced the hell out of this role. You know, I was doing everything. I was
method, just
oh man, yeah.
10,000 calories a day.
Yeah, like Christian Bale. I was like 20 stone at this point. I was like going to the police station as much as I could, practicing my singing voice. And I remember on the opening night, because I think we did about 3 or 4 of these performances, you know, they're really trying to get you into the kind of theatre spirit, which I loved. I remember sitting backstage and I was getting really nervous and like preparing to go on. And I remember sneezing, but I somehow, and I don't know if I've ever done this since, managed to like pull a muscle in my side. So I was in so much pain, you know, like, and genuinely so scared. And they're like, right, Jamie, it's time for you to go on. It's time for you to go on. And I was just like, I can't stand. I can barely sing. And I was like, this is my big role. This is my make and break moment. You know, there's scouts out in the audience, you know, like.
And you would have wished you'd have the corn.
Yeah, exactly. Like I was made for that role. Yeah. So I just remember, like having, I guess it was quite the show must go on. Like I just had to like take a deep breath and go on stage. But I remember genuinely being agony. And I also remember I had to like handcuff everyone. But I was in so much pain trying to do my lines that I remember just handing the handcuffs to one of the actors who I was meant to be handcuffing. So I'm just there panicking, handcuffing everyone. He's just holding these handcuffs. I'm just like, you know, can barely sing my song because my side hurts so much. So yeah, it was basically the end of my acting career before it even begun. You know?
Was the guy who was your arch rival at drawing just there going like, Scooby-Doo?
Doing these incredible dance numbers and like, yeah. That's where I know his name. He's in the West End at the moment on a yeah. Oh man. So yeah, it's just a sad tale, really, like a sad tale of terrible roles, you know.
Made you the man you are today.
Yes, exactly.
So
on the podcast, we sort of have different features. One of the features we have is like random things that you only find in primary school. Is there anything that you can think of from your school days where you just like, I've never seen that? It was just random. Didn't really understand at the time. You still don't really understand it now.
Ellipses.
Yeah, ellipses. What's going on with that? I think actually slightly related to the tale I just told is the triangle. Like, I don't think I've ever seen it used anywhere other than school. I've seen orchestras play in the Royal Albert Hall. I've seen like bands, and I love music. I go and see live music as much as possible. I've got lots of friends in the music industry. Who plays the triangle? What is it? Like, and yet every school seems to have one. I don't know. Like, I think it's for the kid who can't act and he's just given.
Yeah, you're right.
It must have been created for that one person who needed a role.
Yeah.
Didn't offer anything else, like, right?
Exactly.
This guy.
Yeah. And also hidden. And it was always like in this like weird little cubby, you know, in like the school halls. I don't know if your school's the same, where you can draw the curtains and you keep all the benches and stuff back there. Yeah. That is where we were playing. Like, just draw the curtains. It's like they're there. Like, it's like, but they won't see us. It's like, but they'll hear you. You know, it's
did you come out for the end round of applause?
Yeah.
And you know, you're like,
yeah, I think we all got to play our instrument. We had like maracas going on, like, and it was like, ding, you know, like, yeah. So I don't think I've ever seen a triangle since primary school.
No, that's a great shout. That
tambourine. When you said tambourine, I was thinking you've got to give it the old Liam Gallagher coming.
Yeah,
out.
I was going to say Oasis. You know, they made that cool.
Can't you? You can make.
Yeah.
I even think like the coolest person on the planet would struggle with a triangle. Like,
it's because you're doing nothing with it half the time.
If you swap the triangle for Liam Gallagher's tambourine, he comes out, it's like, I said maybe.
Because it doesn't really have any place in a song except for that ending as well. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. Oh man. Yeah. I doubt Liam Gallagher could even make that.
No, I couldn't pull that one. So, if you could be in charge of education for the day, what is there anything that you'd change about schools' education?
Yeah, this is a really hard question, I think, and I think like there's many more people qualified than I to answer it. I think, like, honestly, being seriously, I guess it would be like, from my experience, would be less emphasis on exams, I suppose. You know, like, because I know like coursework really helped me get through it, especially things like maths and stuff. And I think it was just that act of like building towards something, like kind of actively trying to build up this kind of like project or something. And especially like coming from such an art background, art was basically made of coursework. And I always thought it was the most ridiculous thing that in art we were tested. We had like a timed painting. That was the exam, you know, and it was just like, it's just so unrealistic to what you end up going off to do in the art world. Absolutely. And stuff like, so yeah. And I guess like, I mean, I was quite lucky that I was actually really good at exams, in the sense that I have really good memory retention. I used to just be able to get all my books out, absolutely memorize everything I needed, and like do well in exams. But if you ask me now, like half of that stuff I wouldn't be able to tell you necessarily. And I think like when you're actually made to do something, I think you learn so much better. And I you know, it's been a long time since I've been in school, so it's probably really different anyway. Like, you know, you guys would know. Like,
I just sometimes wonder whether if you were in the education system now, where the sort of art subjects are or have been undervalued in the past few years, like so much more emphasis, especially in secondary, is put on the core subject. You know, would that have influenced you to be where you are today? It sometimes frustrates me in that we don't value the arts as you know, in education as much as we saw. Well, you see it with things going on at the minute, where the government came out yesterday and were like,
exactly,
find another career.
Yeah, no, honestly, and I agree with you totally. I think like, I think it is like, you think about the amount of incredible things art is involved with, like just the things people enjoy day to day. You wouldn't have that without people in the arts. And I think like, I mean, what what was said recently is a perfect example of how undervalued that is. And and as we were saying, it was always the DOS lesson, or it was always, here's some poster paints. copy this or paint a ball or something, and it does. But I guess it is hard. Like I remember going to one school because we had like a kind of so I've just realized how dark it is in my place. I'm just going to turn on the light. We had one school that I used to go to for photography, because I ended up doing photography and I had to go to another school. So we had like this kind of I've forgotten what they called it. Is it consortium? Like 3 schools basically that kind of we used to like swap around for like their facilities and stuff. And I went to use their photography lab, and I remember this was like the art school in the area, and it was just so different. It like the facilities, the way the students thought, like they thought like artists, whereas we were all the kids from my school were coming in still just like, we're going to paint ellipses, like and then I went on to do an art foundation with a lot of these guys from this school, and like just the head start they had going in, like just it sounds so cliche and stuff, but thinking out the box, thinking expressively and wanting to make these like big cool arty statements, like already dressing like cool guys and stuff, like whereas the rest of us were still like, what is art, like and it was foundation that kind of made me fall in love with art as a whole, because that was where they that you could feel the passion and the energy that was going into it and stuff, so yeah, I guess that would be my changes, I suppose.
Yeah. Getting them to think outside the box. Right, last question. So if you could travel back in time and meet your 10-year-old self, what advice would you give yourself?
I think the first advice I would give myself would be I would tell him all about a story about a boy wizard who gets an invite to Hogwarts to write this big story and become a big millionaire. But in all seriousness, and this is a bit of a lame one, it makes me sound a bit old, but reminding myself now is to sit up straight, because to focus on my posture, because when I'm writing and drawing and everything, I think I literally sit like a prawn, like I'm like sometimes almost making a full circle, like and I've got such a bad back at the moment. I'm like going to osteopathy. I'm having to like do stretches every night.
Yeah.
Oh,
it's an important one.
It's an extremely important one. But if you gave me if you put 10 grand in front of me and said, what is he going to say to his 10-year-old self? I'd have been like, follow your dreams, never give up, sit straight.
I thought when I was thinking about this, and I was like, yeah, just keep on working, like it's all going to be all right in the end. Don't let VHS get you down. But I was like, no, in all honesty, to not be in pain in my day-to-day life would just be such a treat right now. Yeah. I think what it is, I guess it goes, and I think lots of people could learn from this is just that self-care thing of like, I think like it's so easy. Like I don't know about you guys, but certainly like there's a big thing, for instance, on social media with artists where we literally work until we burn out just because we feel like we should. Just because it's like it's almost the cool, respectable thing to do. It's like, oh my God, I've got so much work to do. I barely even eat dinner. Like I haven't had a weekend off in 2 years. Like, and it's like, why are we celebrating that? And I definitely was guilty of that. And like I had like carpal tunnel. I had like hand problems. My back's killing me. Like it was just so. It was
and that's just from drawing.
Just from drawing. Just from like being in terror. Well, yeah. Wait a minute. This goes back. This goes back to that earlier. My parents, if they're listening, would be like, "Wait a minute." It's a different hand. But yeah. So. Yeah, that would be my advice to myself, and to follow my dreams.
Like one of my biggest, and this is something I constantly try and tell my own kids, like golden rules of life is comparison. Comparison is a thief of joy, and I think so many. And I say this to teachers all the time. You go on to the likes of Twitter and Facebook, and you see these amazing displays, and you see all this amazing work, and it can really make you feel inadequate, like you're not good enough, and you've got to be working.
I couldn't agree, but I really like that quote. Actually, you hit the nail on the head. I think it's exactly the same with us. It's like, in one hand, it's like it's this amazing resource of like incredible inspiration. It also just weighs down on you so much. You're like, why aren't I that good? Why are they so good? Like you see these like 20-year-olds who draw better than like, you know, I ever did or probably will, and you're like, how are you that good? Like, you know, like, and you should be happy for them, and you know, but you do, it does start to get to you a bit where you're like, oh man, like, you know, like, so I think it's good to like keep that in context and kind of step back occasionally and like self-care, kids, you know.
Really important. Important lesson. Well, thank you so much. Again, Frostheart Escape to Aurora is out now.
It is indeed.
And then what's the sort of timescale for the third one? Is that something you're working on now?
Yeah, so I'm in the middle of writing it at the moment, and yeah, it should all things going to plan should come out same time next year. So like around like the beginning of October next year. So and thanks so much for having me on. It's been a real pleasure.
Absolute pleasure. Absolute pleasure. So thank you so much. Yeah. So yeah, thank you very much. And website. Do you want to mention anything?
Oh yeah. Oh gosh, I should have remembered this, shouldn't I? So I'm on. My website is jamielittler.co.uk. Nice and simple.
Yeah.
Littler, my name, Littler, like little with an R at the end. And then I think I'm on all the socials as well. Speaking of socials and things, so like I think that's where you'll most likely catch most of my up-to-date work. I think it's Jamie Illustrate on Twitter. I'm trying to remember what I am on Instagram. Let me have a real quick look, if you don't mind. I think you'll find me if you go on Twitter. I've got all the links. It's fine. Yeah.
Right. Well, so thank you very much. We've absolutely loved it.
Absolutely
really
pleasure,
appreciate
and well done again on the book.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thanks
and all
so
the best.
much, guys.
Yeah, cheers. Thank you.
Cheers. Yeah, take care.